Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nilay Verma. I'm a co-founder of Primates Partners and personally spent about 25 years in public sector consulting across Big Four. I'm really delighted to be moderating this very interesting session that discusses the immense potential and market for UAV drones, especially in the background of the draft UAS rules, which have been released very, very recently. Just to set the context before I welcome the participant, I mean, there are many studies that have spoken about a very, very large UAV market in India, and the broad market size is projected to be more than $700 to $900 million in 2021. And interestingly, a large part of that market not just being in defense, but in civilian use as well. And these are pre-COVID estimates. And clearly, if there's one sector that we believe is going to get positively impacted, it's going to be this sector. Going forward, the importance of contactless deliveries can be a factor that will drive the UAV market. There's a huge possibility of the market, and I think the US rules help us in moving that market in the right direction. It's in that background that we have ASSOCHAM has planned this engaging session, bringing together these stakeholders who are dedicated in strengthening this segment and leveraging the multiple applications and opportunities that exist. So let me begin by welcoming Lieutenant General Saeed Hasnain. He's a member of the National Disaster Management Authority. Through most of his 40 years of career, General Hasnain has served in multiple turbulent hotspots and environments. He commanded the Indian Army Srinagar-based 15 Corps, and is today one of the most foremost writers and analysts in this space. Welcome to you, sir. We will very shortly be joined by Amber Dubey. Amber has been one of the persons who's been driving these rules. And he's been interacting with many of you who are there on the panel today. Amber is a joint secretary in the Ministry of Civil Aviation. He was also the acting vice chancellor for Rajiv Gandhi National Aviation University. Before joining the government, Amber worked extensively in the private sector in consulting space. In fact, Amber is there right on time. And for the audience, Amber and I actually worked together, and we were in the same team together in KMG. Amber, nice to see you. We have Deepak Sood. Deepak is the Secretary General of ASSOCHAM, who's worked extensively both in India and outside on industry issues, and has been driving ASSOCHAM's entire positioning of being a chamber which is focused on content and driving industry government collaboration in a way that drives the market forward. We've got great panel as members as well. We've got Lieutenant Commander John Livingstone, the founder of Donnet Technologies and Indian Institute of Drone. He holds the record for the fastest trained military drone pilot and the only naval officer to be awarded the UAV Tetra School at Indian Air Force in 2007. I'd like to extend a welcome to Ankit Mehta, co-founder and CEO of Idea Forge. Idea Forge has become a global technology leader in VTOL, micro, and mini UAV space. Welcome. We also have Nagendra Kandasamy, the founder of Thoughtful Aerospace Systems, and has worked in defining roadmap and technology and innovation in aerospace and defense. He's really passionate about unmanned aerial technologies, robotics, composites, and I'm sure we're going to hear his views on this matter. We have 5 more people. We have a large panel, and thank you to the panel members for being here. We have Vipul Singh, co-founder and CEO of RF Unmanned Systems. It's a drone solution startup and done some very interesting work. Rahul Jain, the founder and managing director of Matrix Geo Solutions Private Limited. Welcome. We also have leader V.S. Srinivasan, a veteran of the Indian Air Force from the flying pilot branch. He has about 21 years of experience in aerospace and defense, and currently leads Tata Group's effort in UAS, handling technical, operational, and business development. Tarun Mishra, the founder and director of the prominent Indian startup in the industrial domain, Tech Technologies and Maxi Labs is with us. And finally, we also have Sandeep Reddy, an engineer specializing in UAV and AI technologies, and he founded Crystal Ball and has a decade of experience advising in this space. So we have a great panel. My request to all my panel members would be to brief in the comments and questions that we have. While I'll first request Deepak for his small address, and then I'll request General Hassan and Amber for their opening comment, and then we'll get straight into questions. Deepak.
Thank you, Nilay. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining this very, very pertinent and important session and discussion this morning at ASSOCHAM's webinar. Thank you, Nilay. As always, it's a good start with you. I think the rising adoption of this kind of technology is taking place globally, whether it is defense or governance. And in India, we have started seeing this application, obviously in the defense and the governance space has already been there, but I think there's a lot of civil space applications that have just kind of started. There are many, many open questions in this, and I'm sure each one of you will raise those, so therefore I would not touch much on it. UAS, the system, UAV as a system, the autonomous as well as manually controlled devices, which could be controlled from land, sea, air, has a command and control system which is plugged to a maintenance and a personnel who controls the entire device, is what we are talking about over here. They have applications which one can't, I mean, there's no limitation to your thinking. You know, when I was a child, I used to think Star Wars was something which will happen maybe next century. But here we are. I mean, we have Star Wars happening here. I was attending a wedding and I was seeing a drone trying to click pictures. And honestly, I'm not a man who attends to many weddings, but I was quite amazed at the skill of a person who is managing the device so beautifully. And when I say what was impacting me was, more importantly, it was the skill with which he was able to target. So the idea is that rather than carpet bombing, and I'm not using defense carpet bombing, I'm just using in a conjunction, in a way that, you know, we can do a lot of work which is targeted. When medication is to be done, rather than eating an antibiotic, and if you are able to just take a nasal inhaler, which was initially said to be a bad solution for you, eventually proves better, because, you know, it's a localized, it's a targeted approach of treatment, and therefore these devices become very, very pertinent in the solutions of the civil applications. Am I audible, General Saab? So I will take another example of which I have personally witnessed is in the space of agriculture, though there are defense, emergency response or disaster management, urban planning, healthcare, delivery of agriculture, specifically for a very large field. There's an insect attack that takes place, and a device on a drone which can actually go in time to find out there is a problem, and those are targeted solutions with pesticides or insecticides. So rather than spraying the whole field, you're having targeted applications. So I think civil applications is something which are going to be far, far more successful in India as a country with diverse requirements that we have from the length and breadth of India. So what we need to look at is a robust policy framework that needs to be created, so that we have a consistent behavior towards encouraging this industry and investments come into this space. Right now, we have a very restrictive policy environment, especially for the civil applications, and therefore there's not much investment that has really taken place. I see a lot of young boys over here who have started the startups and are doing success, but I think they are stifling this industry. We need to let them breathe and flower, because there are so many more activities that are happening in other places where this does happen. India is about expected to touch about $900 million as a market in the defense space over here, which is about 4% of the global trade, which is close to $22 billion. Now, that's a huge business that one is talking about. We import 20% of that, and we are the 5th largest importer in the world for this equipment now. Atmanirbhar Bharat is defeated here at the moment we started. So my point is that we need to look at the direction that the Prime Minister is giving, and these are the areas which actually need to be looked at. And there are significant applications that are possible beyond military. So therefore, we need to build a policy framework where standardization, technology standards have to be done. We have to upgrade our policy frameworks in such a way that it is very agile and in time and in tune to the requirement of today. We have seen that this draft UAS rules of 2020 have been released on the 2nd of June by MOCA. Very, very pertinent timing for it. With the current scenario of COVID, social distancing, and the scare of the disease spreading, I think there were so many applications that did come about, and these are civil applications again. They were used for surveillance, they were used for disinfecting the areas. I know of Bangalore, I know of Delhi where these were used. DGCA, Amber is here and has given permissions to some food startups where they can try to fly drones to do deliveries without touching, and these are going beyond the line of sight. So it's like BLOS that one is talking about. The government ruling earlier was that you can fly drones, but only in the visual range, which was something which I think again is something one needs to look at and go beyond. The rules under this policy are to regulate import, trade, ownership, operations of these, and they're for the right reasons, I would say. We need to carefully qualify who is eligible, who's authorized, and therefore there is important that license and permits be issued. But the positive side of this is that the industry would have a permission in its hand to try out newer and better applications, and therefore the market expands in this whole space. And that's exactly what one is trying to look at. I will not get into the details of the policy because I'm sure everybody would touch upon it, but there are few areas which open huge opportunity for supplying of product, supplying a solution which is like a package of service along with the product, and also like the DPP under the defense, you're talking about leasing here. So if leasing can also be a model of business, it will be a great thing, and therefore a lot of people would get into this space. So a person who knows how to manage the hardware will manage the hardware. The person who needs the service will get the service. The person who can give the service will provide the service. So therefore, that's a huge win-win situation for everybody, and there's a lot of job creation that possibly can happen in this space. There are areas like supply chain. When we talk about these platforms, a lot of this is imported today. Like I gave you the numbers. I think consumables is a question mark. Cameras is a question mark. Batteries is a question mark. Lithium-ion batteries. Forget the drones alone. We are talking about cell phones and the other components. 75% of that is in the country China, and therefore we are importing all that. Electronic hardware component industry is something which is where we need to focus our heads on, and therefore I'm just going to tease these points and leave it for you people to consider as we go along in the question and answers with Nilay a little later. I think the digital Sky platform is a very, very important platform. In absence of it, there is a lot of procedural paperwork that comes in, and which is counterproductive, and therefore we really need to look at it. Importing products, one-time approvals could be given rather than each time approval is required. A dedicated cell would be required under UAS. Which obviously would need to have people who have technical capabilities as well as commercial capabilities. Otherwise, we end up with a fiasco at our hands. So these two capabilities is a must. And finally, before I close and hand it back to Nilay, I think the startup ecosystem is extremely important in this case. Large corporations, great, but startup ecosystem is not getting enough funding in this space because we continue to import. The moment you continue to import, you would never be able to build a robust Atmanirbhar Bharat stature for this, and therefore it is extremely important that this be nurtured and grown. Back to you, Nilay. Thank you so much. Are you there, Nilay?
Sir, due to internet connection, maybe he's showing offline right now.
Okay, so I take it over. In the absence of a moderator, I would just quickly flow in what he would want to do. So, Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain ji, may I request you to address us and share your views, please. You need to unmute yourself, sir.
Sir, can you hear me? First of all, am I audible?
Absolutely, loud
am I audible?
Sir. Absolutely,
great,
sir.
Great. Thank you so much, Deepak Sood sir, because I think there was excellent opening remarks. Sets the tone absolutely for the webinar. I am essentially orientated towards defense and national security, but I'm fully aware and sensitive to the requirements of governance and the requirements of commerce. So you have got me here as one person who hugely supports your efforts. Let me start by saying that. Okay, but let me outline a few concerns, parameters, which I think will probably play up as obstacles. Some of them may actually act as facilitators. But let me start by saying what is my experience of UAVs or UAs. I would like to request everyone that you must watch the film Eye in the Sky, which was, I think, 5 years ago. It was released. I watched it on Netflix only about 2 weeks ago, and it will show you military decision making based upon mini UAVs, micro UAVs, and the kind of surveillance and intelligence pickups that they can do. That will give you an idea of what technology can do and what technology will be doing in the very near future. At the same time, I also like to draw your attention to a landmark event of the beginning of this century, and that is 9/11. You see, in 2001 on 9/11, what happened with the Twin Towers and what happened with manned flights managing to target those towers, not only target the towers, but also target Pentagon and places like that, has created a mindset in the minds of most planners around the world, most decision makers around the world. Because somehow the flying object, it was not considered ever, it was not in anyone's perception ever, that flying objects, manned flying objects at that time, could ever be used as weapon systems. And you saw what was the outcome of it, and you saw how it changed the whole world. 9/11, after all, did change the entire world. So I fear that one of your biggest obstacles is going to be the mindset created by 9/11. And the fact that in large metropolises, urban centers and places like that, people will always be under that mindset that how can you give such freedoms to people when it can lead to major security problems. I would like to visualize the early part of the 20th century when the automobile came into being. And a lot of people would have probably imagined at that time that the road belongs to the cyclist, or the road belongs to the horse cart, the road belongs to the pedestrian. So how can you have an automobile suddenly coming and taking over the road? It is going to cause a major obstacle to everyone. It's going to be a security problem. It's going to ram into people. There will be people dying of accidents on the roads. Despite that, we overcame that problem. And you've seen the kind of traffic we have in the world today. Of course, traffic protocols were established, and it has taken over a century to create those protocols. So I dare say that we are at the beginning of an era in which the air is going to be ruled by moving objects, which are going to transform commerce, transform governance. We will obviously have to break mindsets, and we will have to establish protocols. Now, these are not going to be very easy. There's going to be a tremendous objection to it. There are going to be obstacles placed in the way. You who are the pioneers of this entire thing, and that's why I say this kind of a webinar today is an amazing experiment that you are doing, is just the beginning. You will have to do many, many more of these to sensitize the people, not just the stakeholders, but the people themselves and the decision makers, and particularly I'll say people from my community, the strategic security community, because they are the people who have mindsets which take very, very long to break, right? And therefore, I always say I'm here to support you. I'm here to support you because I don't think that we can allow such things to come in the way of development of technology and development of governance and commerce. Atmanirbharta, as we just defined by Deepak Sood Saab also, it lends itself to this fact that we need to dwell on it. At the last, let me tell you that almost 13 to 14 years ago, I was the commander of the junior command wing at the Army War College. And I used to find 400 to 450 officers coming to me every 3 months to undergo a major course. In every single course, I found at least 3 to 4 young people coming to me with their research on UAVs and on UAs. Now then, let me put it. And they all came to me with the complaint that they found no way by which they could develop their interest, progress it beyond. They were very passionate about it. And I used to put them across to different people in the Army headquarters or to the DRDO and places like that. I'm very glad to say that today I find a couple of them are actually working with the DRDO on mini UAVs and things like that. So I think it's just a question of visualization. As long as you have a vision, you have a passion, and you know that you're going to ultimately create this, I think there's no obstacle to it. But as I said in the beginning, I, for one, I'm always there with you. If you need me anytime, I'm always there to support you, and I'm all ears to listen to you today. And since I write so much in the media, some of you may have read my pieces, some of you may have seen me on television. Let me assure you, my services are all available for sensitization of the environment in the future. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, General Saab. It was so nice to hear these words of support for this whole activity. I think this is a beginning, but there are many more that will be done. Thank you for your support for that. I think flying objects have always fantasized people and negative sense and the positive sense both, but it's something that is waiting to happen. It'll happen much sooner than later. It's not happening tomorrow, but 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line, definitely things are going to fly around. Automation is important, but we'll also have to balance our demographic dividend, number of people that we have, and therefore we'll have to balance that out in many areas as to when we do civil applications as we go forward. And I see Nilay Verma is back, and also see Amber quite happy to go on. So before I get Amber online, I'll get Nilay back and hand over to Nilay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Deepak. Actually, I'm going to come to Amber, and I think Lieutenant General spoke about mindset change, and it's interesting. I know for the fact, following Amber on social media, the ministry has been giving approvals for locusts, for many other things in 24 hours, and I think that's the change that we wanted to see, and we are already seeing it. But Amber, you've been in this space for a very long time. Just wanted to get your thoughts at the overall picture, and where do you see this going forward?
Thanks so much. Good morning, namaskar, everyone. And it's such an honor to be sharing the screen with legends like I see you on the screen, General Hussain, and all the youngsters. I'm an good old friend, Nilay. See, I'll not take too much time because whatever we do, it's all in the public domain. Today, I thought I was very happy to get this invite and honored to be here. Today, I thought the focus should be more on listening because government talks a lot anyway. So we would rather listen. We'll go around the table. Lots of young Dronacharyas whom I see on the screen. We are also part of many WhatsApp groups on which we have a very no holds barred. I also see Bade Muchwala, Vipul Singh, Gabbar Singh, Ankit Mehta, Rahul Jain. I don't want to take names, but we have a very active WhatsApp group. It's almost like an Haldi Ghati where we keep fighting all the time. And just this morning, we got to know that the 6 green zones, which we had got permissions from the Intelligence Bureau with great difficulty, the online permission artifacts were not being received because they were still waiting for that one-line letter from MOCA. And this wouldn't have come out if we didn't have that WhatsApp group. And just 10 seconds back, I've already just sent out a message to my team. Just sent out that one-line mail. Here's those ko yaar, khatam karo, aage badho. It's amazing that the amount of miscommunication, no communication, lack of communication, ulta communication. If you just talk to each other, there are so many issues that resolved. I don't know if our colleagues from DGC are here or not. They're also doing a fabulous job under tremendous challenges. It's not easy because, as Deepak also mentioned, General Hussain also mentioned, see, the biggest fear is not permitting. I mean, today, unfortunately, the focus is all on delivering groceries. Delivering groceries, yeah, we anyway have a nation of delivery boys earning 500, 600 bucks a day. Let them earn. That is not what the drones are for. Because the biggest worry of the NSA's office, IB, and the defense forces is, I mean, the first thing which will be delivered is the drugs and contraband. I mean, drugs have the highest value to weight ratio. Okay, I can send a 10 gram ka pudiya and become a lakpati by evening. So please understand, cities not happening. Please understand, cities is not going to happen. So why don't we focus on where the real issues are? I keep saying at every forum that focus on 4 key letters ADHL. A stands for agriculture, D stands for disaster relief, H stands for healthcare, and L stands for law enforcement. These are mass benefit areas. We are going out of the way. Nilay just mentioned about one such case. There are dozens of such files on our desks, which we are looking at day in and day out. Last night I slept at 2 a.m. because we're trying to close out yet another file. Okay. And we're working closely with DGCA. They also have their hands tied. There are rules which are made by Parliament. We cannot just bypass those rules and just start becoming an open nation in the name of openness. And I'll just stop because there's so much to speak. I can go on for, I love the my sound of my own voice. So I can go on for 2 hours. And I've also been a consultant. So I'll stop here by just saying that, and I see if those, if the dead bodies of those 20 martyrs, okay, don't wake us up. We are a bloody, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm controlling my emotions and my words. We are a bloody nation of importers, assemblers, and traders. It's a shame. The Brits left us bloody 72 years back. We are ahead of China in the late 60s. ये 74 से जब उनका दिमाग थनका और वो Deng Xiaoping or whosoever started at 78, we started in 91. 13 years already they are ahead. Plus they don't have democracy. So they can do lots of tough decisions without worrying about what the opposition will say and what Rajdeep Sardesai or NDTV will say tonight. So they can do lots of things. Okay. So having said that, yes, democracy also has its benefits. We lost some people yesterday, and some.
We're going to request Amber to start from where he stopped because I am not hearing him now.
Yeah, I think we've lost Amber for the time being. I think its connection has. Amber, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. Deepak, you can hear us, right?
Yes, I can. Amber,
Amber sir is offline right now.
I think.
Okay, so try to connect back to him.
So let's just give the. Maybe just in the interest of time, Deepak, we could request Sandeep. Sandeep, you there? Sandeep, can you hear us? Hi, Sandeep. If you're there, if you can unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
we can.
I can see. Yes, Sandeep. Amber did refer to you, so I thought let me start
so Amber
with
is
you.
back. Let's
for first go.
Nilay, Amber is back, so let's get Amber to finish first. It was
Amber,
really a nice
please.
pitch, Amber, that you had taken, and we lost you at a particular point. You just mentioned about Rajdeep Sardesai, and thereafter we lost you. You're muted, Amber. Could you just unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was making such a brilliant speech,
Yes.
heart-rending speech. I don't know where I got cut off, but all I'm saying is, Sanad, it's a matter of shame that we have become reduced to a nation of importers and traders and assemblers. We need to change that, and we can keep on blaming the government and the bureaucracy and the regulators and this and that and all kinds of excuses. But I think it's up to us. Jo past mein hua, past we can't change. But the people on the screen, people beyond the screen, there's so many of us here. If we don't take revenge on whatever's happened 3 days back, I think this should be a wake-up call. If we don't wake up now, I think we deserve to be a laggard. So I'll stop here. I would rather listen to the thoughts and ideas. And I would request all our young Dronacharyas to just limit to 2 things, one for the industry and one for the government, so that some points are left for the others. Otherwise, the last person will say, as earlier said by my other colleagues. So just one good suggestion for industry and one good suggestion for the government and regulators, and then we can go around. Then maybe in the end, maybe around 12ish or 12:15, maybe I can come back again for 2-3 minutes, and then just wrap up. Nilay, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Sandeep, do you want to go first? I think the point that Amber made about manufacturing is an extremely important point, and we want to discuss beyond this US draft rules. So Sandeep, over to you for your comments.
Okay, do you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or you want my initial remarks, Nilaya?
5 minutes is good enough.
Okay, good. So I think the subject I'm interested to talk about is, it's all about optimism. I think I don't want to whine and moan in this one. So fundamentally, when I looked at the draft rules, I think there are 4 points I would like to share. The first thing is the seriousness of the business over here. And the second one is an equal opportunity. And the third one is a futuristic view. And the final one is a fair play. So these are the 4 points simply I would like to talk about. So the first one is, when I looked at the draft law, I think everyone who's been in this industry would understand there are multiple cars which would come out, but I think law is not something which would come. I think that fundamentally puts directly an indication that the central government is damn serious about this one. I think to me that was kind of a delightful thing to see that the government is serious about it, and that puts quite a bit of an onus on the industry. I'm a part of an industry, like how my peers and my betters are right now joining with me, more and more responsibility. So how does this change? I think when I read the whole document, I think it not only says that it's going to be a law one day, I'm sure it's going to be tabled in parliament and then translated into a law, but also I think if I may personify the industry, I think it's like a child saying that pay me attention from long time. And now I think I see the government is paying utmost serious attention, and also I see the clauses and the language which says if you do bad job, I think you're going to be penalized. From there, I think it might be a little disconnected, but I would also like to say that when I and my friend, I think we were talking about an industry and the transformation, we saw a photo of a COVID post-lockdown situation. There was a long line, I think it was a South Indian photo, where hundreds of people are standing in front of a liquor store and one falling over each other and then trying to say that we're delighted, and then 6 feet thing is long gone. Then the police comes and then gives two on the back. To me, I think it made me kind of a parallel that now the government is serious. I think it's up to the industry to be serious in terms of the ecosystem we are building. I think every time when we talk about the ecosystem, there are multiple players here, right? There are manufacturers, there are providers, there are operators, there are service providers, and finally there are authorities, which is part of a government. As Mr. Amber Dubey and other gentlemen said, even I work for KPMG. So the role of the government is extremely clear over here. But the seriousness of a government puts an onus on me that now I need to look at my product extremely serious on all fronts, and which indirectly translates into I need to ask for a better investment, not necessarily magnitude, but the quality investment. So from an industry, the first point that the seriousness of a government translates not only for the industry to be more responsible, but also it would have a better economic activity. The second point is an equal opportunity. I think when I looked at the draft law, it states extremely clearly what are the requirements. And also not only it says the requirements, but also talks about the lab and the kind of validation and the bona fide certificate it would give. That makes me believe very strongly that the benchmark is already made. And now from there, we can run together. I think here, I'm from South India. I think you can really differentiate between a horse and a donkey, which is extremely important because I think you can remove the bad apples. And now it would fundamentally change the quality of the conversation in the country. I think so far, I think the quality of a conversation is not about which company has the best product based on the merit, but to be very candid with you, it is based on quality of relationships rather than the quality of the products. I think to me, I think mentioning that this is what is a requirement, everyone has to stick by or abide by, and this is a lab or a kind of an authorization which is going to be there, it's a kind of an equal opportunity to everyone. So to me, I think when I have to infer the advantages, it's not only a fair play, but also everyone standing at the same line and then running from there. And that, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the companies or the industry representatives will start focusing on the quality of the product and focusing on the merit. I would like to take an example. I think early this year, I live in US most part of my year, and then I've got my friend partner from West down to India early this year. In the DFA conference, I think Mr. Dubey has come. And it appeared that there's a fanfare about when a delegation is leaving. I think my partner and investor asked me, is he kind of a Tom Cruise in this country, in the UAV? I didn't know Dubai is that famous. I think, to me, I think we don't talk about the quality of the product. I think we don't have a conversation which company has the best controller. We don't have a conversation which company has the best ground control station, or which one has the best kind of an AI embedded cloud computing software. So to me, I think when I looked at it, I think giving the clear requirements and the lab over there is a lovely move in terms of positive direction. And the third one, I think, which is my best part, is defining the requirements of a drone port, and also mentioning the mandatory requirement of an emergency recovery is kind of an indication that the BVLOS is possible, and also indicating that for me as a CEO of the company, I have a clear idea of how to fill all the pieces in the jigsaw puzzle. To me, that's quite futuristic. So how does these 3 points connect at the end of the day? Government seriousness means that investors are going to be quality related, and then they're more serious. Equal opportunity meaning that it's not going to be monopolized market. It's like everyone, I think the gentleman mentioned that the startup ecosystem is going to be encouraged, which is lovely. And the third one, futuristic, means that now I can focus not only on the mechanical aspect of a drone, but truly over a period of time, not right now, with the 4G, 5G coming into picture, and when the infrastructure is going to be upscaled, now we're truly going to talk about what is a service which is going to be the differentiating factor between a company A and company B, rather than how much time the drone is going to fly by. So that's how I see this, is particularly as this particular draft law going to be a milestone towards how the mechanical aspect of a drone is going to turn into an intelligence and a value added service to a civilian society. So these are the 3 points I would like to bring up to the table. And any questions, welcome, please.
Sandeep, thanks. Yeah, Sandeep, and we'll come back to the questions once we've got everyone in. But Sandeep, if I can actually get Nagendran to come in as well. Nagendran, you heard Amber to speak about what are the couple of things that you can specifically recommend, one for the industry and one for the government, to make things go forward. And I think one of the areas that you were talking about was about the rules for migration of UAS from nano to micro classification. So over to you, Nagendran.
Sir, please
Nagendran, we
unmute your
can't hear you.
microphone.
Can you unmute? Nagendran, if you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, everybody can listen. Yeah. So good morning, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for the such a session from ASSOCHAM. And in terms of the draft policy, I agree with Sandeep. He was talking about correctly. I think it got a lot of fair play in terms of traders, manufacturers, assemblers, and a lot more. And from the draft policy, one thing we could able to know is the vision of the government. Especially, they are talking about the drone port, they're talking about the UTM system, they're talking about the corridor, and also I undergone the various policies which is there in globally. I think we are in front-ending those things in the policy way, and also I would like to tell you that the current policy overall, it is giving a lot of milestones in terms of the technical, in terms of the legal, in terms of the trading. I think it's a fair play in terms of this policy. To the specific questions, yeah, there is according to me, the weight classification is the very simplest way, and now we are trying to complicate, and we ourselves we are trying to complicate a little more in terms of multiple things, height, all those things we are trying to bring. And other than that, the nano to micro, the transition, the weight is the simple way. I also wanted to touch upon some of the fundamentals, because which is I'm not sure, like basically this is a the rules wise I'm okay in terms of the commerce, in terms of the trading wise. I wanted to touch upon some of the few points. Today, the drone, after the COVID, especially the drone ecosystem proved a lot in terms of what it can do for the entire nation. But if you see that still drone industry as such, what is the category it is, whether it is coming under the aerospace or defense, or what is the industry it is, that we don't know. Recently, we have also faced some of the problem. Basically, we were called as a critical industry, because no aerospace and defense industry is called as a critical industry. When we applied for some, financial loans or something, drone industry also looked as a critical industry. To be frank, in terms of the drone perspective, I can tell before COVID, after COVID, because a lot of PRs running around about the drones after the COVID, and we need to create a lot of justification. And also in terms of the trading base, if you see that we need to think about a dedicated HSN code for a drones. Still, we don't know what is the code should be followed for those things. This is one of the some things. If even the guidelines from this perspective, as a trading and commerce perspective, if we see, if you add some more points, I don't know whether this DGCA can do this, or from, I think definitely MOCA can do something on this area also, because this is the whenever we think about the industry nurture and growth, vitamin M, which is basically money, is one of the important perspective from my side. So basically, this will increase us the funding opportunity within us. So this particular angle towards the commerce industry, like the trading arrangement, in terms of the billing arrangement, loans, this has to be looked into it. And also, apart from that, I think the draft rule which we are expecting is one of the milestone, and it is going to give opportunity to all. It got a lot of vision in it. I think with that, I'll hand over Mr. Nilay.
Yeah, no, thank you, Nagendran. I think the point, and I think many people have said that beyond weight, and especially even below 250 grams, the operational effectiveness of even those small ones are very different from what they used to be in the past. So actually, they operate, and it's very difficult to measure height and distance. So is the way to going forward. Rahul, you wanted to talk a little bit around monitoring, right? And how do we do that? So over to you, Rahul. Rahul, can you hear me? Rahul, we can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Hello, good morning to all of
Yes.
you, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about a little bit. Actually, I come from the service industry, and we are basically doing a lot of mappings of India and abroad. And when I look at the rule books at this time, and see there are a lot of things is happening at this moment. I appreciate the good work from Mocha and Mr. Dubey, that who is really putting his efforts to get it rolling. But when I look at the service industry and the fundings which has been coming out of it, the projects are, most of the big projects are going to the government side, whether it is Swamitwa scheme, which is directly going to the, Survey of India. There are a lot of projects which are upcoming from Indian Railways, highways, like that. So they are again coming back to, they are again going to government agencies like either some IITs, or they are going to, Survey of India once again. So there is control over the government is too much at this moment, but certainly I see the positive sides of it, that we are also getting a lot of projects from different government sectors even. But the problem is we are getting a lot of issues to get the permissions, and the the when I look at the perspective, service industry perspective, they have a big major issues. I just would like to share some of the issues with you. That the first problem they are facing is from where they should get the relevant, reliable, economical drone. So this is one of the biggest issues. They cannot import because there are a lot of issues related to the permissions, to ministry clearance, and then after ETA approval, that is basically a manufacturing part. And now what the rule says that all the things comes into the one pursuit, like manufacturing, importing, and other things. So they or even the trading. So they comes into the single pursuit. And when we look at the another perspective of less than 2 kg drones, that there is no requirement of drone license to fly that, but you need a UAN number, you need a UIN number to go for it. So I humbly request Mr. Dubey and Ministry of Civil Aviation to look into this perfectly, and to ease down this under 2 kg rules so that the service industry can actually work. Because if you look at the under 2 kg drones, 90, or I would say not 90, but 70% of the business is coming from this only under 2 kg scenario. Because all the mapping, small mapping industries or bigger mapping industry, they are using a big aircrafts. We used to do manned aircrafts mapping, aerial mapping earlier, but since 2013, we have been doing a lot of mapping for Indian Railways. We have done a Raebareli project for the National High Speed for National Highway Corporations, and for monitoring as well. We are using only less than 2 kg, which is, if we look at around that 70% of the drones are from the DJI. I'm not saying that the DJI should be there in India or should not be there in India, but we should look into the perspective that how it can be, going beyond the monopolization of only DJI. Okay, but we also need to look into this perspective that how we can have our own drones within the range of DJI economical values and the quality of that. This is the another perspective. And rather looking at only China, we can also open up for the other countries like US, which is a good friend of ours. I'm not advocating for any other country or importing, but 90% of the parts we are importing at this moment. So it is going to be a throwback for the other, even the assembling or manufacturing industry, because still we need to have some time or the cope up time for manufacturing the different parts in India. I hope you understand these kind of issues which we are going to face. And coming back to your nano question, certainly that has to be according to the weight perspective, because otherwise it is just a toy, number one. The second thing is it doesn't comes under the purview of digital sky.
Sure.
So digital sky is still not there. That is another problem.
No, I think we'll come to the digital sky part, and I actually wanted to get Scott and Srinivasan view on that. Arun, do you want to add something on the point that Rahul and Nagendra had made, or any other point that you had first? Tarun?
Yes. Yes, sir. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I think what Sandeep has said is a very interesting point, that right now, rather than quality, what we are focusing on is the relationships. And to be a successful company or to be a successful sector, we need to have a very good quality product. And as Rahul said, DJIs are the major drone. It's not like it's super cheap, but it's also something which provides good quality. I would draw out not a lot of things, but just 3 points which have been described by the World Economic Forum on this specific sector, and would like to draw attention of the panelists towards those specific points. So, I mean, as we all know that the American and European leadership has effectively been dominating the aviation sector, like FAA and EASA. They have conventionally sort of defined the safety norms in the industry from the good old days, right? But there has been a radical change when it comes to the drone sector. In drone sector, the entire industry has been dominated by China as of now. Dajiang Innovation, that's what we call DJI, has taken over about 70% of the global market. Interestingly, it has contributed $2.7 billion to the Chinese economy. The major question that we have in front of us is how do we get into this race, and how fast can we get into this race? And that's where I want to draw the 3 points. So number one is the supply chain integration, manufacturing pipeline, innovative pace and logistic support that is there in the Shenzhen-based ecosystem. It gives a clear competitive advantage. International competitors, including India, we have not been able to compete with the price and the logistics ecosystem, and therefore Indian manufacturers per se are more of an Indian assembly sort of ecosystem, not really going into the core manufacturing of motors or carbon fiber manufacturing and so on and so forth, and that needs to have a larger numbers for demand, and that would effectively help the complete indigenization of manufacturing and would help the Indian economy, not just from a drone ecosystem, but from a larger ecosystem. If we really have to get into it, we need to think about that. The second is beyond the conventional aerial imaging. Chinese players are well ahead of everyone in R&D, testing, innovation, and drone space. To give you an example, very recently New Zealand made a headline that it's collaborating with a California-based company called as Kitty Hawk to develop electrical vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. The fact is, EHang, a Chinese-based company, has already been doing this for years. They can fly the drones up to 120 kilometers at 130 kilometers per hour. Interesting point is China allows that kind of R&D. In India, if you are doing it for 130 kilometers per hour, you probably won't get a test bed at all and forget about developing it for 120 kilometers. Without that, how do we ever dream of becoming the leader in this space? That's not possible. It's simply not possible. The biggest advantage of China is not only just a robust regulation, it's a transparent regulation. You don't need to talk to people. You don't need to actually go around making relations. You have to actually go online and you have to give a framework to it, and it's completely ready and completely transparent. Not just in India, internationally, the burden of certification process, testing, development has been the key hurdle to speed. And it is possible that by the time we come up to the speed of regulations, China would be much far ahead in this space and would dominate in the same manner America and Europe are dominating the civil aircraft space. The last point from my side is very recently Shenzhen, as well as Jiangxi and Sanya announced that unmanned traffic management for pilot projects. This would enable the real-time coordination among drone operations over cities. One of the key elements of commercial drone industry to develop. Now, commercial drone industries do not just have a military grade application or industry applications. We per se in Detect are more into the industry grade applications, but a larger section is also into the toy industry, where nano categories drones are used. It's not just for making the drone into a toy sector. It's also about increasing the number of drones you are making, and that would enable manufacturing. Because to manufacture a carbon fiber industry, you can't set up the industry for 10 drones. You have to set up the industry for 10,000 of them. And for that, you have to focus on these kind of sectors where it can be used over cities, it can be used as a toy, and evolve this sector where billions of dollars can be added into Indian economy. The rest of the international community definitely are meeting and looking to develop technological protocols over years. China is already testing remote identification, tracking, and UTM in real time. They are leveraging the experiences of companies like Unifly, who are opening new test beds, using their domestic technology like UI in China. And this is becoming the backbone of drone industry of today. In summary, I would like to effectively end this note by saying that the only thing that is keeping India from taking over this space and China, which is leading this particular industry, is a robust and a transparent regulatory framework for drones to enable the nationwide operation. Both in terms of service, like Rahul said, major of the service sectors are into 2 kg and below. Not about just regulating that 2 kg and below, but about complete transparent regulation that has to be there. Rwanda has been one of the countries which have recently been able to do a national scale delivery drone over long distances, but it has a while to sort of get implemented. And if we don't do it, once China is able to systematically approve all sizes and types of drones across the world, it will be years, if not decades, ahead of the rest of the world, including us. So that's about what I wanted to highlight and draw the attention of the panelists over here. Hope that we can take that up.
No, absolutely, Tarun, and we'll pick up R&D point because it's an important thing. But if I could, request Coordinator V.S. Srinivas for his comment, and also if he can pick up on this aspect of digital sky and for registration, authorization, monitoring. It will take some time. How do we, go forward in the interim? Coordinator.
Thank you, Nilay. a very good afternoon to all the panelists. It's been refreshing hearing so many diverse perceptions. So just my 2 cents here. Let me start with a very quick take on the draft rules as they've emerged. It is, as I see, almost 80% in a shape and form to be adapted almost at the start. A few minor tweaks here and there, like definitions of what a manufacturer is or what a payload is. Payload is typically not something which does not contribute to a flight, but it has a certain purpose. So a few tweaks around some of those definitions. It's really refreshing to see the introduction of new concepts in the rules. If I were to jog our memory back, aircraft rules of 1937, Aircraft Act of 19 somewhere in 1930s, evolved over so many years to reach the level of maturity it has, and I think it's kudos to Amber and his team for being really having that kind of a foresight to introduce at least these 3 concepts which I want to highlight, which are already there way ahead of their time. First, UTM as a concept of a multiple layered UTM service, one below 1,000 feet, one which is integrated with the rest of the air traffic management system. I think it's a fantastic thought, and it just needs implementation. We have not even gotten to the trial stage with the BVLOS performance, but it's really heartening to see that it could become a law very soon. The second aspect is that of drone ports. Where have we heard that before? No one has expressed a need, but here is a policy which already caters for something like drone ports, maybe 5-10 years in the future. Fantastic. Autonomous UAS. I mean, by definition, autonomous flights is something which just does not require a human in the loop at all, right? Otherwise, it's a remotely piloted aircraft system. I mean, I'm drawing from my experience of being in the service and having operated the Searcher Heron UAVs in the larger male class, where I truly understand what autonomous aircraft mean. It is again very much in the future, but to have it already incorporated into the draft rules and having the industry take a look at it, I think it will go a long way. I'm not saying that this is going to be final. Make no mistake, there will be iterations. There need to be iterations, but we need to be open and flexible about how we go about it. Talking about openness and flexibility, I think I was asked for a one-liner or one statement as to how do you see this particular event. I would say open the skies for the drones with an open mind. Right? We are opening the skies. I would request the government to open the skies with a little more open mind. A few reasons why I say that. We're all part of this DGCA BVLOS experimental flights, where we want to literally open the skies, go further and go beyond. We have classified drone aircraft into different weight categories, less than 250 grams, 2 kgs, 25, 150 and beyond. But there is also a classification within that classification. We're talking of multi-rotors, we're talking of fixed wing, we're talking of hybrid. I mean, these are platforms with different, I won't say capabilities, but different features to carry out the same task, right? So already having classified them, I think it probably curbs the flexibility in being able to let these platforms of in a given classification getting further classified. So my request is, I think we can do with declassifying into the type or the operation, whether it is a battery operated or an engine operated system. I think I've made my point here. The next point I would like to talk about is the testing area. Now, the defense has laid down a few testing areas. There are different documents. The basis of this comes from the fact that UAVs or drones are typically dual use platforms. Most of us who've been in this business, and someone like Idea Forge and us in the Tatas have been in here for probably the longest, about 10 years or so. And we understand that these platforms have a role to perform in the defense sector, for military use, as well as for non-military use. They can be, very subtly modified to perform both tasks. Therefore, one would design, develop, and manufacture platforms which could suit both purposes. Hence, access to testing areas where you could do both the tasks is like a blessing from the government. We can't have specific areas for testing only defense purpose or for testing civil use. So the green zones are a good start. Specific areas, limited areas, but is it for a commercial use or is it for testing? That distinction needs to come out. The true economic utility of these platforms, and if I'm talking only of civil use now, the true economic utility lies outside the bucket. There are large tracts of land which need mapping, huge acres and acres of agriculture waiting, drone performances, solar farms, pipelines, power lines, utility for railways. We're stretching over hundreds of kilometers. Medical deliveries to remote and inaccessible areas. I mean, they will definitely not be within a 5 kilometer area. Even if you consider the BV laws in its present form, it's got to go beyond that. It's got to extend to 50, hundreds of kilometers. That is where concepts like UTM will step in. That is where concepts like having an ADS-B on board to be able to interact with other aircraft in the airspace. So the takeaway for this, for both the government and the industry, is we got to mature ourselves. We got to step up. We need responsibility in the ecosystem. Responsible, manufacturers, responsible importers. I mean, I would like to bring in importers at this point. That you importing a system, you have to have responsibility. If the regulation asks for a particular set of requirements, the importer needs to ensure those requirements are in place before even applying for it. So which extends the burden of whatever the system requirements for a manufacturer are, that burden should automatically extend to the importers. I mean, if a platform is going to take to the airs in the Indian skies, it needs to be similar, whether it comes from an Indian OEM or from a foreign OEM. We cannot have different standards for both. So responsibility from the OEM side, from the manufacturer side, greater responsibility on the operators and the end users. We as a culture always try to push the envelope, but here I'm talking from a negative sense. If I've applied for a permission to map a 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer area, I would like to ask the operator, can you just go out another 500 meters? Are permission le liya, thoda sa aur kar lo. We got to move beyond that mindset. Be responsible for our actions. Be responsible for our platforms. The regulator wants a map of your area 24 hours in advance. Give it to him. On the other side, the responsible regulator has to make sure that if an operator needs permission, he gets it in time. So these are the challenges. I would say challenges because it is exciting working through these dual use technology. It is opening up a wider net of opportunities, more scope of success. Look at the budding startups. They can bring in fantastic new technologies, but it is important for them also to get integrated seamlessly into the existing architecture. You cannot ask for newer concepts without having tested or proven them. The longevity of the OEMs is challenged by the rewards. The longer it takes, the lesser is the return on interest. There is investor sentiment erosion. We've seen people who've come into this industry, tried to work hard, brought in something fantastic, couldn't make it through, and have dropped out over the period of time. It speaks at some level to how this new government, this new face, this new push being given by Amber and his team, and hats off to the way things are likely to open up. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
No, I think some very, very important points, and I'm sure Amber is going to respond to some of them. But Ankit, Tarun, I think, mentioned about R&D. If you just look at it, there's not really any mention of R&D in the draft rules. So my question is, first, is R&D a subject that should come under the rules? If yes, what are the key inputs that we can consider to make this happen, and what would be a benchmark to drive R&D? Ankit, you'll have to unmute yourself. Sorry, Ankit, you'll have to unmute yourself. No, we can't hear you. Let's just see. Ankit, if you unmute yourself.
Nilay, if you may permit till Ankit comes online.
Yes, please.
Just
Just one
one
second.
point on this.
Yeah, just one second. Just I'm requesting the backend team to unmute Ankit, please. Go ahead, Srinivasan.
Sir, he is already unmuted.
Okay. Ankit, if you
Okay,
press
Ankit.
now you're unmuted. So Ankit, just give us 30 seconds. Can you hear us now, Ankit? Can you just say something? No, I don't think we can hear you, Ankit.
He has some
Unfortunately,
network issues. I'll check, sir.
Ankit.
Yeah, so
Otherwise, if you have an earphone, it may work. But go ahead, Srinivasan. In the meanwhile.
Yeah, so I did mention, I didn't talk about the Aircraft Act of 1934 and the Aircraft Rules 37 amended over time. They sought to bring in R&D activities under the ambit of the Act. Now, this is not necessarily as a regulatory oversight mechanism that, hey guys, we need to control what's happening in the R&D, but it should be from a perspective of facilitating such activities, under a legitimate umbrella. Let all R&D come under the ambit of the Act. We have no problems with that. But it needs to be given nourishment. It needs to flow. We need to differentiate R&D from commercial use or from marketing perspective and let it flourish. Only then, we'll have access to better technology and the true Atmanirbhar concept or the Make in India can really flourish. Thank you.
No, I'm understood. Ankit, can we try once more if we can hear you? Can you say something? No, Ankit, sorry, we're not able to hear. Maybe if you log off and log in once more. We can't hear you, but just in the interest of time, maybe if you can, if you can re-log in, it should happen. Maybe if John, if you're there, first of all, congratulations, John. John, by the way, has been blessed with a daughter the day before. He's in the hospital. So many congratulations. John, my question is, we just heard about Atmanirbhar Bharat, and that's about demand and economies of scale. And people have spoken about the role that the government can play to push demand. So any thoughts from your side and also your overall comment? John, go ahead.
Can you just repeat the question once again?
John, I was more talking about how do we build demand and what role can government play to create demand for the ecosystem?
Okay, government playing the demand for the ecosystem can happen only when the speed increases. Only and only when the speed increases for whatever that has been documented as a rule has to be quick, because as somebody who mentioned just a while ago that 70% of the market is within 2 kgs, and these drones have been imported. Now, yes, everything is pretty good. I really appreciate the way these new rules and law has come up, and of course, even the new gazette notification has come out. Now, it's when I first read it, like how Squadron Leader Srinivasan mentioned, it's for the future. It sounded like a fantasy rule book for me in the beginning. But yeah, we all are dreamers, and only if we dream, we'll be able to make them come true. Nonetheless, if that really has to happen, I think we need to speed up the way we are going right now with the approvals. Well, even to get NPNT, it is taking almost a year for some people. Now, this has to really go fast, because the new Gazette rules mention of a lot of things, not just one approval. There are some 7 to 8 steps to be taken to smoothen, or rather make this a reality. So that the only concern I have is the speed at which we are going is not enough. We have to really fasten our seatbelts. Otherwise, I'm dead sure, like Squadron Leader Srinivasan mentioned, a lot of companies have shut down, and many will continue to do so, and many are losing jobs, and thanks to COVID for making it worse. So this is the only concern I have. So we need to just speed up. That's it.
Fair enough. Ankit, can we try once more? If you can hear us, and if we can hear you now.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So, particularly on the R&D point, I think, I believe that the draft already takes care of the whole flying part for development, which is via the model aircraft classification. Till the time you are not certified as a model aircraft, you can operate in designated areas to do the development. A lot of detail will go into what are these designated areas and how can we classify areas near us as designated areas. That's something that will make or break the whole R&D ability for the ecosystem. I think one area which has not been considered in the draft is the whole payload testing challenge. Right now, model aircrafts cannot put any payload on board, but in order to develop innovative payloads that go onto drones, we need to test those payloads as well, which may or may not be, so we have to understand a little bit better on that side as to how to enable that. But I think beyond that, R&D is in that broad sense enabled. Some of that devil is in the detail of where those designated areas are going to be and whether we can have areas near us be classified as designated areas. Hopefully, because it's model aircraft, there will be more areas and there should be more areas, because already model aircrafts are allowed to operate in certain areas in cities across the country. I want to take this opportunity to actually debunk two issues that I felt were repeatedly coming up during this conversation, but I felt that we need to represent them appropriately and accurately for the country, right? The first issue is Indian market size. Indian market size, in my opinion, is nowhere dramatically north of $10 million annually at this point in time. So let's not try to let's not go by the number of 600, $700 million. It's nowhere close to even going to get there over the next couple of years. We don't have the money to spend. Government is the biggest money spender there. Private industry is not allowed to operate the drones, and government has reduced its spending already under several areas. So let's be very candid about the fact that there isn't enough money in the industry to support a large base. We have to grow that. We have that responsibility. We have that mandate for all of us, the entire ecosystem, to make it 100, 200, $1 billion industry. And I think if we be at it, if we will be at it, and with laws like this, we will get there over a period of time. We won't get there in a hurry because everything is not going to open up, and it should not open up as well in some cases, because we have not enough experience to handle the downsides of doing something inappropriate, right? So let's be very clear about the market size. The other area which I believe we need to understand very, very strongly is we are nowhere near the place of going and innovating on conventional motors or manufacturing the conventional motors, batteries. There are hundreds of things I can list that we are nowhere near close to as a country to address those issues. We have scale problem, we have raw material problem. We simply cannot do any of this and nobody will give us value. I think as Indian innovators, we need to be very clear. We need to make differentiated products where we leave the really low margin task of making motors or whatever to whoever in the world can produce them at the lowest cost. But we create innovative products, we create innovative integrated solutions which command significantly more value than what the product does. Apple is the largest, the biggest company in the world at this point in time, and all of its manufacturing happens in China, but all of the profit it keeps and it fills its pockets on its own. That's what we need to be. We need to leverage the ecosystem in a manner that all of that profit that is being generated is generated by us. We are in that position right now. Tomorrow, we will be in the position to make the systems as well when the volumes by our innovative products and by our efforts will actually increase significantly. So I think it is extremely important for us to consider that as well, because there is going to be no money coming around. The problem is not that we can't do it. The problem is who's going to give the money. The government will not give money, loans will not come, and none of the investors are going to pay money for something which is run of the mill and is competing directly with somebody who's already 10 times better than you at that. So that's the biggest problem that I foresee in the ecosystem. So I think the ecosystem should focus on innovation more than doing the conventional stuff. The time will come for doing that. And I think we need to focus on building the numbers, get the market to $100 million, and easily a few $1 million will be available for motor development or everything else. In my opinion, that's going to be something very crucial. Otherwise, we make an innovative motor that the entire world wants and we ship it out to them. And that is the area that we should focus on very critically. Now, in terms of the regulations itself, I have 2-3 very, very limited points. I think this regulation is addressing 99% of the gaps that were there in the previous FAR. and is going above and beyond the initial mandate as well. So I really commend the effort on this direction. There are 2-3 issues. I think we need to be very clear whether we are making these rules for all UAVs in the country or for civil UASs. Because are we expecting that all the head-on searchers and all defense equipment is also going to follow these rules? Because right now they don't make a distinction in the rules around that. So that clarity has to come. Earlier CAR mentioned civil UAS, and I think we should continue using that terminology to make sure that we don't impede on a territory or create further confusion in a already difficult policy environment. Secondly, I commend the regulations for creating a significantly better level playing field than used to be earlier, and I'm really happy with that. Secondly, I believe that a little bit on the security side, we have left Nano pretty open in terms of where it can operate from, because it is not under any regulation rules. It will have a number, but it's pretty open of where it can operate from, and doesn't even need to report its position or location of operation, because there is no live tracking being enabled on it. In my opinion, very, very strongly from a security standpoint, we should enable at least tracking, live real-time tracking based on the remote pilot station. It need not be on the drone itself, but the remote pilot station can continuously, because the UAV has the GPS on board, the UAV will have all the other sensors on board. The remote pilot station should beam its location, so that if we are near an airport, if we are near a defense installation, at least the forces which are deployed there can see if there is an unfamiliar activity of a drone which is exempt of operating in those kind of areas. So I think it is a very, very important point. We should have remote tracking, but we should limit it to the remote pilot station beaming that information to the network rather than the drone itself, because it's within 100 meters. So you really, the hardware will limit the 100 meters, but really not have to worry beyond that. So I think that is really critical. Other area is that there are certain policy matters, right? For example, we are saying that 2/3 of the ownership has to be Indian and or the directors have to be Indian. In my opinion, a strong harmonization of that with the way our defense policy is formulated is going to be really crucial, because if defense is allowing me 74% investment, and our civil aviation policy is not allowing me to that level of flexibility, then I'm going to have an investment issue in my company. I'm not going to get any investment in the company at all. And that's going to be a huge problem, because money is going to come. Let's candidly agree that money is going to come from a lot of guys who have far more risk-taking ability than the way our Indian businesses or our Indian investors are. They don't have the risk-taking ability. They invest in areas they are familiar with, that they understand. And it is not wrong on their side for doing that, right? It is just us who have to acknowledge that, and to say that what do we do to enable the industry in a manner that they can get the investments that they necessarily need to stay the distance till the time policy, operationalization and all of it catches up together to make it a very, very large market and large ecosystem. So I think these are my few limited points, and would really appreciate close attention to those.
Ankit, they were not limited. I think they were very, very pointed as well. Yeah. So can I? And I know about time. We have about 8-9 minutes left. I would want to come back to to come back to Amber and Lieutenant General Hassan. But before I come to you, Amber, I think people have spoken about how this policy addresses 99.9% issues. I think people spoke about drone port. I think two other areas which this policy addresses, which I think speaking to people is important, is remote pilot training organization and insurance. I think those are also extremely important in the way the industry wanted it. Before you respond, Amber, two other points that had come up, if you can pick it up. One was from a regulatory perspective, while DGCA is the overarching body for civil operation. Is there a need for a specialized or a cell exclusive for UAS, especially given how the market is likely to happen? And you've also heard about people talking about, quick reaction. And the other is, the current manufacturing ecosystem largely depends upon components coming from China, especially battery and motors. Is there something that we need to do as part of the larger program of India and Atmanirbhar Bharat that can help push this forward. So Amber, to you first, and then we'll come back to General Hassan.
See, I won't get into too much of details because see, this is a subject which we can discuss over the whole day, and each of these issues, if it were easy, we won't be doing this webinar and discussing about it. Many of these are very valid points, and they anyway come up in our WhatsApp groups and the face-to-face interactions that we have. The last point about DGCA, yes, I mean, it's been the making, and I'm personally pushing it because right now people in DGCA, I mean, the people who are working very, very hard, and all the things that you've seen in the last 4 or 5 months, that too during Corona, with all the movement restrictions, all the clearances, exemptions, there's so much of file work. These are physical files, not just online, to get it approved to various levels, send it to the secretary, then to the minister's home, get it signed, then bring it back, then issue the order. I mean, I don't want to bore you with all these details, but I know it's very easy throwing stones and shoes at the government, but I'm an outsider. I'm not a babu. But after coming in, I realize how much effort goes in. And I also agree, and I know I'll get lynched for this, it's an 80-20 rule, that it's basically 20% people who work and 80% people, most of them, yes, they're all very nice guys with all due respect, but it's the 20% guys who also carry the weight of those 80 people to serve you, because you're the public, we are the servants, so we are public servants. So, but it's the 20% who have to slog. So whatever you see is an outcome of those 20% people, and they're not there on the screen right now. They are very shy, they're publicity shy, they don't speak much, but they are the ones who are making things happen. I mean, this whole, I'll just stop by saying, giving a very live example, because see, most of us are all technocrats and we like numbers, facts and figures. Speech is cheap, numbers are tough. On 20th May, we got this letter from the Agri Ministry, 20th May, that we need this drone spraying for locust areas, because in Rajasthan and the border areas, and General Hasnain would appreciate it much better than many of us. I mean, in many places you can't send the tractors and the trucks and the mini trucks which carry those fogging machines through which you spray. So we need the drones, we need the helicopters, and we need the fixed wings. So helicopters and fixed wings are a very complex area. We are anyway working on it as we speak. But drones, 20th we got the letter. It was a banned activity. On 20th night at 8 p.m. the file was sent to the Honorable Minister Hardeep Puri Saab at his home. Next morning at 9 a.m. the file came back, and by 2 p.m. we had released the order saying for the first time in Indian history, spraying is allowed, but only limited to desert, because we are spraying poison, and anything can go wrong and can create huge damage to the ecosystem, to human life, livestock, and property. So this was given on 21st May, within less than 24 hours. On 26th, we set up this empowered committee because it was so difficult to get into a tender situation. The tenders will take 3 to 6 months. So on 26th, we set up under instruction from the cabinet secretary and the PMO, we set up an interministerial empowered committee comprising people from agri, from disaster, from aviation, from Pawan Hans, from DGC, etc. By 3rd of June, we had given out a report recommending a particular rate, per hour rate for the drone companies. This is outside the tender on a negotiation basis. 5 drone companies were identified who had bid for a recent tender. They were negotiated with, and on 3rd June, we gave the report. On 6th of June, in 3 days flat from the empowered committee's report, on 6th June, late Saturday evening, work orders were given to those 5 players. On 10th of June, they've all reached different parts of Rajasthan, Barmer, Nagaur, Phalodi, Jaisalmer, Bikaner, etc. And they're killing drones, they're killing the intruders from across the border. So see, 20th May, it was not even allowed. It's a prohibited activity. By 10th of June, outside a tender, a committee is formed, they take bold decision, they fix a rate which is 2.5 times the L1 price. See, government is all about L1, as we keep talking about. There's a curse of L1. We have given a rate of 4,000 rupees per hour, which is 2.5 times that 1600 rate aaya tha L1 mein. You can imagine what kind of shit happened in those closed doors and heated disputes with the finance people, because finance people are saving your money. You're the taxpayer, it's your money. So from 1600 rupees ka L1 rate, we took it to 4,000 rupees per hour, because we realized below that will not be sustainable. And we want you to succeed. We want the drone companies to make money, because if we don't recover costs, in 10 days they'll anyway run. They'll abandon. Ye desh seva, garibon ki seva, kisan ki seva is all very nice as a speech, but when it starts hurting your pockets, you'll run away. So we came up with this number. I know this number doesn't get you 4,000 rupees multiplied by 4 hours a day, 16.
I have a feeling we've lost Amber. I don't know if you can hear Amber. No. So Amber, we've lost you. It happens once you get very impassioned. This is the second time. But Chandra Sen, while Amber comes back, I just wanted to come back to you. You heard this. I know you started by making that important point of saying you're behind us to be able to drive this change, and especially the mindset change that you talked about. You heard now the industry, your comments.
Thank you very much, Nilay Verma Saab. I have been paying very, very rapt attention to what has been said. And I can see across the screen some very, very young and very dynamic, very passionate people. That is what encourages me more than anything else. There may be rules and rules and rules, and there may be obstacles everywhere. But in the Indian system, one thing is there: if you have the passion and if you have the drive, you will go through it. There's some very, very interesting issues which have been raised. Particularly, I am concerned because I know that most of the obstacles which will be placed in your way will not be from anywhere else but from the security organizations. It will be from the intelligence agencies, it will be from the Air Force and the Army and people like that. One of the things which I can think of, I think an issue which was also raised by Ankit Mehta, was this issue of, identification, friend or foe. We have in the armed forces a system called the IFF. It's a system which is there as a part of on ground-based forces. The Air Force uses it, the Navy uses it. Anywhere that you're approaching something, you need to electronically determine your own identity, ascertain the identity of the person who or the organization or the object which is flying in front of you or sailing in front of you. How can this kind of a thing be developed? Because there are enough systems already in place, I would say. And this is a very important issue which was raised by Ankit, that how will you ascertain the identity of various flying objects all over the place? This is one of the ways that you'll have to do it electronically. These are means available, and I'm sure that these kind of protocols will develop. The second thing is that as it is, robotics is going to go up, and the whole issue of robotics is something for the takings, just going to keep developing. And it's not only in the field of UAS that you're going to find these problems. These problems are going to be there with autonomous vehicles on the ground. You're going to find this with robotic soldiers. You're going to find this with robotic nursing and medical care and things like that. So it's good to also perhaps do some cross-cutting across domains. Also probably include some people from other domains into your research work and see how are they doing it. And after all, there will be certain threats posed from there also. Autonomous vehicles can be extremely threatening on the ground, and there will be thousands of them. Many by 2032, we are talking of an Indian policy in which there will be only electric vehicles, number one, and I foresee that another 8 to 10 years later, you will probably find a large percentage of vehicles on the ground will be autonomous vehicles. So that is going to be so why not be in sync with that industry too, so that your research work can go hand in hand, perhaps, and probably be much more productive. I would end by saying that you are seeing the situation which is prevailing on the line of actual control. I hope you realize that the area where Galwan, where this happened, is 11.5 hours drive from Leh. Right? People think it's just happening above Leh. Or it's just happening, the other side of the Ladakh range. It's not, as far, far away. 355 kilometers or more is the distance from there. Now, that is the kind of place where the winding roads, your response systems there, anything is going to take your time. And there are hardly any helipads in that area. I mean, we have still, actually, the infrastructure in that area is just being ramped up. I would see the scope for your industry, for UAS, in a thing like this. delivery of ammunition, delivery of goods, probably taking away of small components and parts of essential equipment. Let me tell you, I've had experience on seeing a particular post with 30 men, which is called a winter cutoff post in Kashmir. That post ran out of all things, they didn't have a proper burner for their stove, right? For their kerosene stove. By November, we stock everything, and by March, somehow they ran out of this very, very crucial component. And because of that, 30 men, their lives were at stake because they could not eat. You could not have fire. You could not create a reasonable fire to start cooking your items there. You couldn't have hot water to have a bath. One crucial item, and the route to that place is full of avalanches, snowbound completely. Now you see the utility. See the utility. Now this is a small component, and the utility of a autonomous flying object which can move up, deliver, and come back. Probably the whole a burner of a stove weighs about 500 grams, or maybe less than that. So I am only telling you this view from a very crude example point of view, but that will make you realize what potential exists for you. I mean, it's unimaginable. And with that, I will close. But I think I was absolutely fascinated by the thoughts which were expressed here so lucidly, very clear-headed. The greatest thing which I'm looking at everyone here is that you seem to be very clear-headed in your ideas. And I know that your capability to sustain this effort will always be suspect, because unless this commercializes, unless this becomes profitable and happens early enough, it's very difficult to sustain this effort. So my best wishes to you, my warm regards to all of you, greatly appreciating you. We appreciate all our warriors on the front lines. I would love to appreciate you equally as warriors of this country who are going to take us ahead in the difficult times ahead. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. In fact, looking at the next generation and how clear they are, you always feel they're in a better hand going forward. But I would want to invite Vipul for your last comments before I will request. Amber, we left you behind. You'll have the last word. But before that, Vipul, my apologies, Vipul, I missed you out.
Just had one question which bugged me where I was taking notes. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Mishra ji, and then before that, Reddy Sahab also, about relationship. The relationship works, regulation doesn't work. Did I hear correctly, or what was that? Mishra ji?
I think the point was being made. Bolo, Tarun, bataiye.
It's not just that the relationship works. There are several things, like I'll tell you near for the zone mapping. It's not yet out yet, but there are forms like for aerial photography. You have to submit 7 forms to the DGCA, and these 7 forms will go for 7 different department approvals. Now there is no timeline per se. It can take 8 weeks. It can take 16 weeks. I have submitted it in November. I still do not have an approval for some kind of activity with the client. I probably do not think I will get the approval. But there are people, and there is no clear demarcation how people are getting the approval, how people are not getting the approval. What I am hinting at is we should have a clear policy which says that this is how it is done, this is the reason why it is not done, and this is what it takes to get it there. That is what I am hinting at, and this is something real that I have experienced, which I am highlighting over here.
Okay.
रिलेशनशिप ना, अब तो रिलेशनशिप बन गई है। वेबिनार पे हैं, अंबर दुबे नाम है मेरा, ईमेल आईडी आपको निलय दे देंगे और जुगाड़ कनेक्शन बन गया आपका मंत्रालय तक। तो just drop in a mail, we'll figure out why something is, and देखो, though permission will not be the same, आपको करनी है फोटोग्राफी, जैसे अभी मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ टूरिज्म का है, they want to do it right at विजयपथ, they'll get it very fast. But you might be doing it maybe a little far away near Manesar, we may not give it to you. So see, there's no standard rule or something. It all depends on context. Who's the person? Who's the personal authority? Suppose you might be doing for a private use. You might be doing a movie shooting. and Ministry of Tourism is now wants to do it at Vijaypur. They'll get it. They'll get it in 2 weeks. Now, of course, Ministry of Tourism will not have its own drones. It will be one of you on the screen. So you will say, "Arey, dekho, pakka ye Vipul Singh ka jugaad hai upar tak, aur main bichara Tarun Mishra, mera koi kuch sunta nahi." So now I think let me just debunk it. There's no such jugaad connection. That time is gone. Okay. Otherwise, people like us won't. I mean, we're not fools to leave Nilay Verma's fantastic company and come in ragado 16 hours a day here. Okay. You have our email IDs. After this, I'm sure people will share it with you. In fact, I'll add you to the WhatsApp group also. So that any problem you have, we have friends in DGCA, friends in MOCA, we'll work it out with you. And where there's a problem, then there's a problem. And also don't forget, there are many people on this call who are not on the screen. They are from the security agencies. We work with them very closely. They are doing a fantastic job. We are still not a banana republic. We still go out home to work to back and have fun and have safe life. We're not killing each other. It's only because of the work done by those in the uniform who were led by General Hasnain, and also a lot of people who are without uniform, the soldiers without uniform. So they are doing a fantastic job. But let's just say you will not just get an automatic approval, because there are sensitivities involved, and these people, IB and other agencies, 3-letter, 4-letter word agencies. I mean, see, there are many considerations which I can't speak on this thing, and we have also found lots of people misusing the benefits also. So, I mean, sometimes because things are not being said in a very articulate manner on this webinar, let's not presume that everything is hunky-dory. We have found on the Punjab border, Kashmir border, Rajasthan borders, we have found drug consignments, we have found AK-47 consignments coming from drones. So, the drone गिर गया, तो हमने पकड़ा उसको. समझ रहे हैं ना? इसका मतलब जो पकड़ा, that could be just 1%, 5%, or 10%, which means there's another 90% which was not caught. So let's just say, you know, we are living in a very dangerous neighborhood. I don't need to explain that. They're all smart people on the webinar. But as I said, on this relationship front, ये सब बंकम है. कोई जुगाड़ कनेक्शन नहीं चलेगा. और आपको जुगाड़ चाहिए तो मैं खड़ा हूं, आपका सेवक. आप जनता, मैं सेवक, पब्लिक सर्वेंट. Nilay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amber. It's nice to see you. You haven't changed. It's really nice. Vipul, last word to you, and then we will close this webinar. Vipul, can you hear us? Vipul, we can't hear you. You'll have to unmute yourself. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's a pleasure being on this webinar, and has been a wonderful dialogue so far. I've been waiting for my turn. So, see, there are a couple of aspects I would like to highlight. I mean, first, I would like to continue where Amber sir left on the relationship front. I think relationship is as good as your participation. So, if you shy away from participating in the dialogue with the government and assisting them in formulating the policies, regulation, thought process, the roadmap, your relationship certainly you won't be noticed. So if you really want to get noticed, develop the relationship, have it in a way where you participate. That's what I have been telling all the fellow entrepreneurs. My participation in this industry started 6 years back, and how DGCA came to know and gave us the chance to participate in all the dialogue is we used to write RTIs on regular basis, asking some tough questions. When there was no provision for any commercial drone and all in anywhere. 6 years back, there was no dialogue also. So when the first committee meeting was organized, the DGCA themselves sent a mail that why don't you also come in the committee meeting and throw some light and discuss with us. So that's how relationships are built. I think Amber sir knows us because we discuss a lot of hot topics on the platform and the WhatsApp group. So this is to all the attendees of today's webinar, that please participate in these dialogues proactively, bring your ideas and put it to the right people. Put some effort beyond your closed door business, that what is happening outside and who is responsible for that, and share your ideas with them. The second most important part is that the thought process going forward. I think what has been done. There were a lot of things which were not being done in the past, but right now, since January or almost December, things are very, very active. And what we need to do is that utilize this momentum in a very positive manner. Be very outcome oriented. I have also noticed that a lot of people get happy with just the activities. There has to be a change in the thought process where instead of activities, we should be focusing on what outcome has been delivered. The outcome could be many. The outcome could be the intellectual property created by the ecosystem for the global market. The outcome could be that how the balance sheets of our companies are changing with the activity which is being done by the regulatory bodies as well as the industry. The outcome could be that how much employment has been created and how many problems have been solved. So we have to create a KPI for all of us, not only for the government. that what we are doing as entrepreneurs and what government is also doing at their own ends to achieve these outcomes, and we should have a deadline to achieve these outcomes, a joint deadline which should be fixed that, okay, we want to create a $1 billion market, or business jointly done by all the agencies mixed. There way we should have a clear demarcation of a contribution which is coming from government and private as well. What we see today is that the majority of business is coming from the government enterprises, and hence the speed of growth and scale is limited to what the government ambition could be. Whereas private companies have far different kind of ambitions and different scale at which they work and the speed of growth. So we need to see that how do we enable the participation of private user base, the enterprises, large enterprises which are into infrastructure, mining, agri, insurance, who have been waiting to use these drones on a large scale basis and change their businesses. So the impact would not be only on the balance sheets of the drone companies, but the efficiency delivered by drone companies will impact the balance sheets of these large enterprises who are key economic drivers as well. If our mining business will change, our mining business import and export will change. Similarly, our infrastructure business import, export, quantity and quality will change. And that's how we compete with countries like China, by not replacing or by not banning the electricity or electrical equipment coming from them, but by competing with them on business, creating alternative solution for the world where they have alternates to buy from India. And how we do it? By creating a better product and better solution. Now, the third most important part of all of it is attracting investment. So one of the discussion which was to be touched upon was the investment, that how do we achieve Series A? And since Amber sir inspired me to talk about certain numbers, so I'll put certain numbers for everyone's reference, that we have more than 100 drone companies and we have approximately 50 drones which are already on the Digital Sky platform. So that's a good sign. And but apparently on this other side, so far in last 5 to 6 years, the Indian drone ecosystem has received funding worth less than $20 million. That's the amount of funding we have received, in which more than 50% is done by one company, Idea Forge. So that's where we have to look upon that. Are we really attracting foreign investment? And if we are not, then what is the reason? There have been only 2 to 3 Series A rounds. So that stays the maturity and the scale at which our drone companies are really operating at, less than 2 to 3 Series A rounds. Now the value, how do we create value? What really the investors see? I mean, I will take the leverage to discuss upon, because we were the first commercial segment company which was invested by institutional investors in India. So we understand very well, and these are deep tech investors who have given us good insight that what they really look for. So one of the things they look for is the sentiment. Once the sentiment around the market is positive, they get interested, but that only attracts their interest. It does not attract their investment. Investment is purely based on the value which they judge about a particular company. And the value is created by either intellectual property or the speed of growth of the company, or the dominance or the disruption which the company is creating, or the team, if it is early stage investors. So all of it is pretty much dependent on how much demand is there in the ecosystem. So we have to see that how do we create that demand so that all these value impact factors are increasing on daily basis. Hence, we have the investment. And one more suggestion, since MOCA representative and Amber is there, if we recognize certain use cases which we feel are going to be the use cases of the future, for just the sentiment perspective, we can carve them out separately in the car or in the policy. For example, agri spraying is a big use case. I estimate that it is going to be a 10,000 crore worth of market in India itself. Based on the agreeable land we have, and investors, the large VCs are very interested to look into this market and invest into this market. So if we just carve out these kind of use cases, there can be many such use cases separately in the policy, that just sets the right sentiment in front of the investors, and it makes our job a little easier as entrepreneurs, so that we don't have to explain that how do you interpret a certain clause which will enable the agri spraying in the future. It's clearly carved out, like we have carved out drone ports or UTM business as well. So that was the last comment from my side, and I really appreciate the way things are happening at MOCA right now. So all we need to do is that we have to have a collective effort. We can't just keep everything on government's shoulder.
Absolutely, I think Vipul, that's a great point to end this. But we want to just thank obviously all of you, the people who are on the webinar, Lieutenant General Hasnain and Amber, for being here today. Amber, we'll keep coming back to you. We'll get the feedback that we've got not just today, but through other inputs that we've got, and come back to you with recommendations on how we can collaboratively work together. Thank you once again, everyone.
Thank you very much. God bless everyone.
Thank you. All the best. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.